Okay, so let's start talking about annuities. So you've now saved for 30 years, you've built up your little nest egg. In your retirement annuity, you are 65 and you are ready to retire. So what now? So like I said, the first thing you can do is you can take up to 1/3. Now, please be or understand this, it's up to 1/3. So you can take 0 of your money in cash, or you can take up to 1/3, or anything in between. You don't have to take the whole 1/3. You actually don't have to take any of your capital out of your retirement annuity if you choose not to. But you can take up to 1/3. The other money has to be invested into an annuity. Just understand that once you have made that decision, if you decide, I don't want to take any of my capital, I'm going to move everything into an annuity, you can't 3 months later change your mind and then try and access that capital. Once that decision is made, it is made. The money is now in an annuity and you cannot access that money again. So that, just be very careful on that. So you now have to move that money into an annuity to generate an income. Now there's 3 basic types of annuities that you can choose to put money into. The first one is what we call a term certain annuity. Secondly is a life annuity, and thirdly is a living annuity. So I'm going to quickly touch on a term certain annuity, because when people retire, very seldom do you go into a term certain annuity, but there is like a hybrid where they do a little bit of a term certain plus then a life annuity. So let me just explain what a term certain annuity is. With a term certain annuity is you go to the insurance company and you say, listen, I have X amount of money, let's say 500,000 Rand. What is the maximum income you are willing to give me over a 10-year period? The insurance company will then calculate how much they are willing to pay, and they will say, listen, we are happy to pay you 5,000 Rand a month or 10,000 Rand a month for a period of 10 years. Once you are happy with that agreement, you sign the agreement, you pay the 500,000 Rand to them, and then that 500,000 Rand is not your money anymore. It is now the insurance company's money. They now have an agreement with you that they are going to pay you that income for 10 years. Doesn't matter what happens to the market, doesn't matter what happens to you. That income will be paid for 10 years. If 3 years down the line you had to pass away, that annuity will go to your beneficiaries, and they will receive the income from that annuity for the other 7 years. At the end of 10 years, that agreement ends, the capital is gone, and you have no more income. So that's why on retirement, it very seldom happens that people use a term certain annuity on their own. Okay, so that is a term certain annuity. Where we do see term certain annuities used is, let's say, for example, your father passes away before retirement, his pension fund money pays to you, you are the beneficiary, but you are in your 20s already, and it is pointless for you to have a life or a living annuity. So you want to get that money out as quickly as possible so that you can invest it. You would then put it into a 5-year annuity. It will pay you that income every month, and you can then invest that income, and after 5 years you take your investment and go and invest it for the rest of your life or retirement. Okay, so that's a term certain annuity. Now the second one is what we call a life annuity. So how does a life annuity work? So with a life annuity, you go to the insurance company. Again, you say, listen, I've got 500,000 Rand and I need an income for the rest of my life. So let's say, for example, you have R1 million available and you want to invest it for an income. The insurance company will then do the calculations. All the actuaries will look at it. They will look at your life expectancy, etc., and they will come back and say, listen, for your R1 million, we will pay you 5,000 Rand per month until the day you pass away. So they guarantee that income for the rest of your life. If you turn out to live to 120 years old, they will keep paying you that 5,000 Rand until the time that you get to 120 years old. If that means they are paying out much more than what you've paid them, they lose. And that is the risk that they take. But they very seldom lose because these guys calculate everything to the nth degree. Now, if you pass away 3 years down the line and they've only paid you, 180,000 Rand over those 3 years, but you've given them R1 million, they win. Because the moment that transaction happens and you give them the million and they start giving you the 5,000 Rand, that R1 million is no longer your money. It is now the insurance company's money. You have bought a product from them for R1 million. You have bought yourself an income for the rest of your life. So if you pass away 3 years down the line, that is just toughies for you. You lose. So then you go, okay, but what if I pass away? Or what if I live for 10 years? I need this income to increase over time. I can't have 5,000 Rand a month every month for the next 20 years because in 20 years' time, that 5,000 Rand will be worth almost nothing when we take inflation to account. So then the insurance company will recalculate and say, okay, so we will give you 3,500 Rand per month. That income will increase with inflation for the rest of your life. And they'll usually put a limit on that inflation increase. So they'll say it will increase with inflation up to 10%. So if inflation goes over 10%, you will only get 10%. Okay, so if we get runaway inflation like what you got in Zimbabwe and some of our other neighboring countries, the insurance company doesn't take that risk. You take that risk. Again, same scenario. You say, listen, I'm happy with that. The moment that transaction happens, that money is no longer yours. They're now giving you 3,500 Rand, growing with inflation until you pass away. So if it's 3 years down the line, they've paid you 110,000 Rand or 105,000 Rand and you pass away, that million is gone. It's not your money anymore. But then you say, but okay, I'm married. So if I pass away, my wife would still need the income. It can't just disappear when I pass away. They will then go back, calculate and say, okay, for a joint life annuity, so this now covers your wife as well, we will pay you 2,500 Rand a month, growing with inflation until the last person passes away, until you and your wife passes away. And the moment you do that transaction, the R1 million is gone. So if 3 years down the line, you and your wife passes away in a car accident, they've paid you something like 80,000 Rand, the R1 million is now theirs. That transaction happened. Okay, so that is the negative side of it. What is the positive side on a life annuity? Well, the positive side is if you had enough capital built up throughout your life that you can buy an income that is enough for you to survive on, you know you will never run out of money no matter how old you become. The reality of the situation, though, is that very, very, very seldom, probably like 1 or 2% of people will have enough capital saved up so that they can justify buying a life annuity so they have enough income to survive on. It happens very, very seldom. Another way that you can structure it is to do it through a hybrid structure where you add a term to this life annuity. So they would then say, listen, we will pay you this amount of money growing with inflation until you die, but if you die before 10 years, we will at least pay this money for 10 years. So worst case scenario, it will pay for 10 years. So they then link a term, but that again will decrease the income that they initially pay. So that could decrease the income to say 2,200 Rand a month instead of the 5,000 that you started off with. So each of these things have an effect on the amount of income that you will get. The income that you get from your annuity will be taxed at normal income tax rates. You will just qualify for better rates, and secondly, more rebates if you are over 65 years old. So that is a life annuity. The last option is, or the other option is, to go into what we call a living annuity. So what is a living annuity? With a living annuity, the money stays yours, which means the risk stays with you. If you take too much of your money and you run out of capital, then that is your problem. It is not the insurance company's problem. In a life annuity, the insurance company takes the risk of you living too long. Here, you take the risk of living too long. So what happens? You invest your capital into the market, and that's also the risk you take. If you invest into high risk funds and the market takes a dip, your capital value depreciates, which means that you will then have less capital to generate income for you, and you will start running out of capital faster. So you invest your capital into the market, and you can withdraw a percentage of your capital every year as an income. Now that percentage is anything between 2.5%, so you have to withdraw at least 2.5%, but you have a maximum of 17.5%. That is what you can withdraw. You can withdraw that as either monthly, quarterly, or annually. So you can say, I want this income paid to me every month. You can say, I want it paid to me every quarter. Or you can say, listen, give me all my income for the year up front, and I'll get income again next year. I will manage it throughout the year. So that is up to you. Now, here's the risk. If you draw more income from your capital than what the capital grows by, your capital will reduce. So let's say, for example, you are drawing 12% income, but your capital only grows with 7%. That means your capital will reduce by 5%. So if you had R1 million in, your capital will reduce by 50,000 Rand for that year. And at the end of the year, you will only have 950,000 Rand left. And what then happens if you do that, if you take more money than what the capital can generate, you start going into what I call the death spiral. So what happens is you take more income than what the capital can generate, which means your capital reduces. Next year with inflation, you need to take even more capital, but you have more income, but you have less capital to generate that income, which means you have to take a higher percentage of your capital, which means your capital reduces even more and faster. And then that keeps continuing, and you start getting into a death spiral where your capital becomes less and it has to generate more income. Less capital has to generate more income. The problem and the danger with the death spiral is that it happens so slowly initially that people don't realize that they are in the death spiral. And by the time they realize they are in the death spiral, it is too late. And then they cannot get out of the death spiral. And that is when people have to sell their houses, they have to downgrade their cars, they have to get a second or a part-time job to just start to generate some extra income because their retirement money is not enough anymore. Okay, so the income that you get from your annuity, again, is taxable according to normal tax rates. Another thing that needs to be understood is that the income is calculated at the beginning of the year. So let's say you have R1 million and you want to take 10%. That means you will have 100,000 Rand income that they will divide over 12 months. So that will give you a monthly amount, but that monthly amount will stay the same. Whether that fund goes up or down, your monthly amount is fixed for that year. So it can be that if you take 10% but the markets go down, that eventually your capital decreased by more than the 10% that you've taken in the beginning of the year. It might have decreased by 12% over the year. Once your capital in your annuity reduces to below 125,000, you can then withdraw the whole amount. So you can liquidate your annuity fund, take out the balance once it gets to under 125,000. There's no other time that you can access more than the 17.5% in your fund. Okay, you can move your capital from a living annuity into a life annuity. So you can decide at some point that, listen, I've now got 3 million left in my living annuity. I'd rather convert it into a life annuity because I have to guarantee my income for the rest of my life. You are allowed to do that, but you cannot move your income, your fund from a life annuity into a living annuity, because remember, once you have gone into that contract on the life annuity, you no longer have that capital. So there is no capital to move into a living annuity. It is gone. It is done. Okay, so what happens on the death of the annuitant? So you now, on a living annuity, remember, on a life annuity, on the death of the annuitant, the money's gone. It's no longer there unless it was linked to a term. On the death of an annuitant in a living annuity, whatever's left in your capital will be paid into or over to your beneficiaries, whether that is your wife, whether that is your children, doesn't matter. It will go into towards your beneficiaries. They will have the option to take out a portion and reinvest the rest into a living annuity in their own name. They can take the whole amount and invest it into a living annuity in their own name, or they can withdraw the whole amount, and that amount will be taxed in your capacity. So it will be taxed in the capacity of the deceased, not in their hands. The good news, though, is that an annuity is exempt from estate duty. So any money that you have sitting in an annuity will not be part of your estate to calculate estate duty. So that money will go to your beneficiaries without being estate dutiable. So that saves a little bit of money there. Okay, guys, that in a nutshell is annuities and retirement annuities.